Welcome to the Red Pill Diaries. Today we're talking about censorship. Not we, the royal we, I, that means. So today I'm talking about censorship and how you get around it. And I mean, of course, it's not an issue until you experience active censorship. But even before you receive active censorship, you may not be aware that you're receiving passive censorship, and that is on YouTube, because not a lot of people know this yet. But most of the comments that you type on YouTube, if you spent longer than 1 minute writing it, or even up from 30 seconds, your comment won't actually show to anyone. And the reason you can tell this is if you actually, and it doesn't have to be anything risque or anything, just spending effort. If you spend effort writing something, 9 times out of 10, well, it might be based upon if you've already been flagged as an undesirable on that platform, right? Because I have already seen on YouTube that I can take comments in the same channel. So the reason I'm talking about this today is because someone asked a question and it led on to this today, and it's some stuff I've been looking at the last few years about the way censorship's been working. At least since 2017, I've been looking at this, and I've been seeing things modifying. So Google have come out with certain things, and then obviously they've rolled back the code and they've explored different avenues instead. Because I remember some of the way they used to censor is different than it is now. So, for example, there was a thing a few years ago where if you did a comment, it would actually make the application hang if it didn't like the comment. So you went back into it to edit it and it would make the application hang. Now it comes up with an error. So this is just obviously a progression of how they're working with things. They won't tell you this comment's been blocked, and they could just as well do that, because if you think about it, any action within code, if you're doing a treatment to some data, and you're saying, right, data's come in, how are you going to treat this? Looking at the words, nothing crosses this dictionary that we have, or certain center structures don't look like they're attacking anyone based upon. I'll be kind and call it AI, but it's not. There's different. That comment was made that there's no such thing as AI. I understand that. AGI is the new term they've come up with to get to that next level of saying something that's almost sentient in code, right? And people like Ben Goertzel are working on, and who knows if they'll ever really get there. Well, let's dial it back a little bit and take the kiddie version of AI, which is basically just smart tech. Running against a set of rules saying when someone writes these sentences, they generally are being belligerent, right? Let's block this comment. They could just well tell you it's blocked, but they don't. Why? I really believe it ties into the mockery of mankind, where if someone doesn't know they're being blocked, you've wasted all that time writing that comment. Well, you've taken this guy who's attacked you. His comment hasn't been blocked at all. He said some really horrible things. You've responded, and let's say let's say you haven't matched their tone, and you've responded in a more intelligent way, not using curse words. The algorithm blocks you. Didn't block their comment, but it did block you. What does that tell you? Well, it can tell you a number of things. It can tell you that maybe he's on a different algorithm than you. In other words, user flagged, put him on algorithm B. User flagged, put him on algorithm Z, right? So it might be more harsh on some people than it is on others. And then you look through and you think, okay, I'll go to that user and see what he's written. Damn, this guy's actually a troll. He trolls people everywhere. So he must be on at least as bad an algorithm that I'm on. No, because his comment is still allowed to flare up. Well, maybe it's because what they do is they allow inciting comments first, but they don't allow the response. Therefore, they get maximum frustration, maximum public frustration, maximum evil. Because an evil thing of communication is to allow someone to have their say and then not to allow you to have your say, right? That's just evil communication, right? So that could be what's going on, definitely. We don't know for sure, but what we can do is we can put together lots of different cases to see what is really going on. So one of the cases that I was doing a while ago was to see, right, what if I go on one of these channels and when the troll comes along and gives me whatever abuse, I'm just going to copy his comment verbatim and then repost it. Sure enough, block, right? So that tells you that it's a filtration mechanism, algorithmically, or it could be even more simple. It could be based upon words. If it could be words in a scoring system. Certain words have a score 3, some other words have a lower score 1. If your total score per comment adds up to 10, then it's removed. Although there's too many examples of when I've had comments removed that are very short. So there's something behind it that can definitely judge tone. I know that as well, because I've tried to get around it with words and doing things in a kind of crafty way, linguistically. But then it still gets blocked, so it can obviously read tone. Now we already know that in Hollywood they can already read whole movie scripts and check the tone and meter of a whole movie script to see if it's going to be a hit or not, or what they think is going to be a hit, or if it's what they decide to be, what do you call it, formulaic entertainment. If it fits within that, then yeah, it passes, then they'll produce the film, right? So this is what we have going on, and it's like, well, it gets to a certain stage. So something I've been saying since DTUbe, since I started using DTUbe back in 2017, it was a piece of crap. Stopped using it. I tried a whole bunch of platforms. I tried Bittube. So most of them I joined in 2017. Viewly is the one I tried back then. Rumble was, I think, 2018 or 19, because my dog's called Rumble, or was. And then more recently, LBRY 2019, I think it was. And then they changed to Odyssey. So there's still the two of them around. So I've tried a whole bunch. I've tried SoMe, I've tried Minds, Gab, all these other platforms. And one thing that came clear to me is that even if platforms are decentralized, the fallacy is that they can't censor. Now, that wouldn't make much sense, because that would mean that on platforms that are decentralized, like Bittube, or blockchain based, or that are IPFS based systems, they wouldn't have the ability to block anyone. Well, that's not the case, because if you came on with a snuff video, I can guarantee you that if you have one lying around, that LBRY would block it, right? And so would Bittube, and so would Bitchute, but Bitchute are different. They are actually a centralized platform. So it led me to believe, and when I say believe, I don't say it lightly. I say it's a strong, almost conclusive outcome that what's actually happening is we're being corralled into different platforms for the purpose of whatever lays ahead. We don't know what lays ahead for us, because the plans have already been made. We don't know what they are, because we're not in the club. But I would gather that what it really is that you have all these people. You have the internet. The internet's given to us with pros and cons for us and pros and cons for the system. So their job is to manage those pros and cons, and our job is to overcome things, restrictions, whatever it may be. VPNs are part of this. Tor is part of this. So what ends up happening is, what I believe will end up happening is that people will be corralled into a series of platforms which are almost designed, I wouldn't say designed that way. Let's say the platforms get designed, and then through sheer tipping point, for example, adoption gets to a tipping point, and they notice that, let's say 60% of this platform is this kind of content. So let's say Bitchute. How many times you go on Bitchute and you see people anti-Semites, and which, by the way, I've got nothing against. If you're anti-Jew or anti-Semite, I've got nothing against what you're going to say. Just rationalize yourself, and also think with a little bit of discernment. Yeah, just apply a little, just a fraction of discernment, and look at what you're saying, and at least be open to criticism from your ideas, because usually they'll be shit. Usually they'll be based upon regurgitated crap that you learned from some other fucking idiot who's just as dumb or dumber than yourself, right? So that's all I'm saying, is just be open to criticism. But anyway, so what happens is you get this critical mass, and then that platform becomes that tone. So the BitChute platform becomes your Gab, or your Parlay becomes your right wing conservative platform. But they don't want to see any of that anti-Jew stuff on there, so that goes over to Minds. Do you get where I'm talking about now? So what you start to do is you start to channelize your different streams of humanity. Why would anyone want to do that? Well, right now on YouTube, well, not right now, up until about 3 or 4 years ago, you had every idea you could think of on YouTube. A lot less content there is now, though, but you did have every idea on there. That means someone who was liberal could happen upon something that was deeply socialist, and then go, next thing you know, he's some Marxist twat, or he's one of these fake anarchists, because sorry, my friend. He's coming to my house? No, he's not. Okay, good. So one of these fake anarchists who are effectively, what could you even call them? Let me get back to that one. I don't want to get stuck on that thought. But they're not anarchists, right? Because they believe in totalitarianism. So you can't be an anarchist if you believe in totalitarianism, right? It just doesn't kind of gel together, right? It's like being a BLM supporter if you're a KKK, right? It just doesn't kind of work. So what it looks like is happening is that people are being corralled the same way they corral, when the OK Corral, they make the circle of what do they call it, horse and carts, so they can corral together and shoot all the enemies out, or corral cattle in. So it's the cattle one, unfortunately. So we're being corralled like cattle into these different media streams, and the system loves nothing more than to have you work for it for free. So in other words, instead of them wasting their energy producing, why do we have to produce this content for these dummies? They don't want to do that. But having you produce content, and even better yet, you produce content that they make money off, you produce content that they themselves benefit from a propaganda point of view, that's the ideal scenario. So then you get a stage where, oh, well, we don't like this whole wake up situation. We don't like the fact that people can communicate. So if you think about in 2006 or 2007, I don't know when I started using YouTube, probably around 2007, something like that. I think it was 2006 actually I started using it. But you could write anything you wanted in there. Nothing would happen. You could communicate to people. You could send your email address, and actually you could even strike up friendships. Oh, you're in that country too? I'm there. I'll meet up with you soon. By 2010, I think that had stopped. By 2017, you couldn't really say what you wanted. Now you can hardly say anything. It's actually a crapshoot whether your comment gets published if you're a certain person on a certain algorithm. I'm guessing is going on in the background based upon the tests that I've done. Oh, conspiracy theorist. No, science. Computer science. I've actually got a degree in it. Ha! No. So, you know what I mean? If people pull that bullshit one out. No, so I've done the tests here and there, and it does appear that's what's going on. Why? As I say, copy, paste. Oh, I get blocked, he doesn't. That's strange. I sign in using a different account. Sure enough, it doesn't show there. But it's showing me that the comment's still there. I can still go edit it. Why would it do that? Why wouldn't it just say the comment's gone? This is where the mockery comes in. Look at him wasting his time there. Oh, rubbing their hands. It's all I can guess. Because it would be just as easy to tell you comment's gone. Now, there's a thing on the app where you go to edit a comment and it will actually say error. It doesn't happen on the website. It's strange. Different things happen on the app than what happen on the website. They all lead to the same thing. So overall, you get to a stage where if you're not deplatformed and you don't, let's say you're not wise enough to understand that everything you write has been blocked, or let's say anything with any meat to it that you write is blocked. And let's say you're too dumb to actually do any test to realize you've been blocked. You write your comment, you bugger off into your next video because you've got no attention span, right? Or attention span of a fly. Then what ends up happening is you don't know what's going on, but you still get to the stage where, oh, I feel lonely here because I've got no feedback on anything. Because the dopamine stuff is not happening. You see what I mean? No like, no response. Where's that? Oh, it's not there. No like. Oh. That's a really good comment that I wrote. Surely among these thousands of comments, when someone writes, "Who's here in 2021?" and that gets 50,000 likes, and yet you've written this great comment that starts off really well to do a hook. Oh, why is that? I haven't got... The reason is it's totally blocked. But you haven't woken up to it yet, so even if you haven't woken up to it, that lack of dopamine hit is going to make you go somewhere else, right? So regardless of which way you spin it, people are going to leave. And what I think is actually happening is the reason they're being corralled in these separate places is for the next generation of God knows what they'll use. When I use the term AI, please understand I use the term lightly. I mean smart tech. If I'm meaning real AI, I'll say AGI, okay? So just for future reference, understand that. So what I can imagine in future is craftily... If you imagine how eBay works, right? So one of the first companies to really harness your effort and your energy, take a massive percentage off you, give you very little in return, including customer service, and get to the stage where most of the world, eBay themselves are making more of a profit margin from your sale than you're making. You did all the work, you wrote the advert, you bought the stuff, you took the risk of buying the stuff, you sold it again, you took the risk of selling it to an asshole, you took the risk of buying it from an asshole. They took none. They took their money. They took their cut. This is one of the first iterations of making people work for them without even realize they're being enslaved. So, I spoke a couple of years ago about when I first started watching Robert Russell Brand back in 2013 or 14, and also Stefan Molyneux. Stefan Molyneux bought a video out called The Story of Your Enslavement, or The History of Your Enslavement. I think it's called The Story of Your Enslavement. It talked about the different layers or different iterations of enslavement. So, for example, past generations, their name Smith meant you were a blacksmith, right? You're going to be working in a certain job. And what they discovered is the slaves were actually more efficient if you allowed them to do what they wanted to do, because then they ended up doing what they love. So this is they were able to harvest more energy from you, steal more ideas, steal more of your effort, giving you pittance back, which they printed on a printing press for nothing. But this is what I really think is the fifth iteration of human enslavement. When we get to the stage where governments of the world compete with Bitcoin, and by the way, it's a no competition. When they starve people enough that people can't, their families are hungry, they can't do anything, right? How many people do you think will turn down universal basic income? None. Even the most hardy, fuck that, fuck the system, I'm against it, even they will. As soon as it's like, because you know why? People, they justify things to themselves, no matter what it is, even when they steal off you. As I've mentioned in the last video with a few pieces of shit in my life, on a yearly basis, at least 5 or 6 people a year, right? They betray their own values, and what do? They make their own excuses up. So if you were to actually corner them, throttle them against a fucking wall, hold a gun to their head, and make them tell you, why were you such a piece of shit? Now you're faced... It's because you did. And they would have... You'll uncover all the justifications they gave themselves to make themselves feel like less of a piece of shit from stealing from you. Or leaving you in the lurch so they could take your car. Like a lot of these movies you see, a lot of these movies like The Road and stuff like that, you know, these apocalyptic movies. One of the things that people do is they always make up a fake road barrier, then steal their car, and one always leans back and says, "No, I'm sorry, it's just because I got kids to look after." Like you should give a fuck about their kids. You know what I mean? Oh, it's okay then, it's okay, just take my life so you can look after your kids, you know? Again, this is what you need to be watching out for in these times. You cannot be, if you're in a situation where you're really in a prepper situation, you can't have people with families around you. Because it's not about the fact that you don't want to help them. Of course you want to help them. It's about what their retarded mind will do with your resources in order to help what's theirs, look after themselves. Because when people have children, they extend their selfishness, right? The children become an extension of their selfishness, an extension of their excuses. Anyway, back to the propaganda thing. When everyone's corralled into the situation, all producing content like a bunch of slaves, so the system can make money out of their intellectual property, and give them pittance back, and then squeeze that pittance down and down and down, as YouTube already have. Because that's the thing. If you look at the video that I shared on yesterday's channel from the pastor, what's his name again? You can see it on there. It doesn't matter. Let's look at it. It's a pastor from years ago, from back in the 2000s, when he spoke about his elite friend and what they were doing and blah blah blah, and how the elite always show their hand. Well, this is them showing their hand. They continually show their hand. So what it is how will YouTube operate in the future? Exactly as it's done so far. Do no evil. Let's remove that. Change terms. The terms are this, now the terms are that. Well, why get us to sign up to any terms? Because that's how they operate. They operate in the realm of trickery, spells, and that kind of thing. As I mentioned in a 2 or 3 videos ago, I don't know, where Anita's idea about the fact that our names could be spells. This stuff is all real. They believe in chanting. They believe in occult ceremonies, that kind of thing. Anyway, once you're all corralled into your streams, never seeing anything that strays outside of if you're being taught, or you're being indoctrinated to be a far left liberal, they don't want you to coming across something from someone else. Not because you might also see the logic of it, but you might also see someone that you could identify humanity in them. And therefore, that's not going to work very well if you're going to be, if another 5 years from now, you're going to be propagandized so much, you're going to be having that guy in your rifle sights. The last thing you want to do is wake up to him being a human being. So this is what the next iteration will be. And that is why, do not be surprised if this time they pull the plug on the whole operation and go, sorry guys, my bad, look, hey, the old corona thing, look, hey, we were just doing our best, we were just doing what we thought was right. People buy it, people get suckered in. And then all the people who were talking about that this was going to be it, they will all be seen as the kooks, like, oh, see, you already said everything was going to fall apart and they were going to do this and that, it didn't happen, therefore you got no credibility now. Because they're in no rush. They already control everything. And I'd say the only reason they wouldn't go ahead with that is that they haven't quite got full totalitarian ability of full control yet to actually squash any opposition. So let's just leave it a bit longer. The longer they leave it, the more control they have. Doesn't matter if there's more people. Doesn't matter if there's more people waking up. Because unless we see the inside files of the MI6 and whoever else it is out there, we ain't got a shit show. We got 2 shows, shit show and no show, to come against that kind of technology they might have to rail against us. Sorry for drinking on camera. Anyway, so that's what I really think is up there, and what people should have been doing a long time ago, as I've been telling people for quite a few years since DTUbe, is, and I know it's going to sound like I'm telling people to feed into these corral mechanisms, but hear me out. So I watched a lot of different stuff. I watched stuff from right, left wingers and all sorts of stuff. I watched things from religious people, from non-religious atheist things. I watch everything, right? Just to get a bit of a understanding of what different people think, right? And what I was saying back then was, why don't you put your DTUbe link, or why don't you put your Odyssey link, or whatever it is, in your channel and just do a small video? Now, luckily, people have started doing that now. Thank God. Finally, people have started waking up to this. But the problem is, it's YouTube are banning people in waves based upon kind of genres, different styles. So I think it will still result in us with different platforms. But if we'd done it sooner, if everyone had just gone towards, let's say, Bittube, right? That would have got big enough. Or let's say Bittube and LBRY had joined forces, and then they give their customers all an invite to join one single platform, so they're not breaking any privacy laws. So for example, Bit LBRY, just for example. So then the customers of both get directed towards that. This platform is shutting down, here's the new one. This platform is shutting down, here's the new one. Both customers share their cryptocurrency coin. One gets 60%, one gets 40%, for example, based upon the fact that he's got more customers than him. That's how you merge companies. That's how you merge a decentralized operation. I actually wrote to Bittube, and I wrote to Viewly, LBRY, this is about 2 years ago, about this. No response from any of them. It's the best because it's the only way to take out a company like YouTube, but it's also the only way to stop that scenario that I'm talking about, channelizing things, right? Because then what you do is you build a critical mass to build something as big as YouTube, and overnight it just gets to the stage where within a few weeks, oh my god, it's overtaken YouTube, and before we know it, oh, come back, fuck you, Google. That's what could have happened. The unfortunate thing is, just like when I did the website Trade Free years ago to compete with eBay, people are their own worst enemies. I had a website that was completely free to use. It's eBay, it's eBay with a much far superior design, and people wouldn't use it. You know why? Most of the customer service feedback we get all the time is, oh, but what if, will you charge me money if I do that? But how the fuck can we charge you? And I'm like, we haven't got your credit card details. Even if we wanted to, we couldn't. But the answer is no. Well, anyway, I'll just check it out next time. But anyway, that's how. But okay, that's New Zealand. People are very, very sheep-like in that country. If I'd done it in different countries, maybe it would have worked. Although I don't think so. I did a similar thing in Australia and found that even though I could print my magazine within a few days before getting printed, was told by both printing presses that are owned by APN and by the company Fairfax Media, that they wouldn't print my magazine. All because they could see the writing on the wall. Shit, this guy's going to fuck our company up. And we're a cartel, even though we're two different companies. We are a duopoly. And I believe that would have happened no matter where I would have gone. So I kind of beat myself up for a while thinking I'm in the wrong country, but don't think it made any difference. Anyway, as far as getting around censorship, one thing you need to do, if you actually care about staying in contact with people, well, I'm increasingly not giving a fuck about it, but let's say you do care, especially if it's very close friends but they're not in the same location as you. I was saying that you can't even trust the internet as a whole, but I would say even find something that's a messaging app through encrypted messaging apps like WickerMe and Signal and Telegram and Private, R1. Although I wouldn't trust Private. Let me tell you about the company I was working with for a while. The guy, Waleed Kamahala, I can never pronounce his last name, Waleed anyway, the main investor. Turns out he got his money from the CIA, selling on information about Osama bin Laden of all people. So yeah, if that took off, I just imagine myself being persona non grata in every Arab country. Anyway, doesn't matter. Not every Arab country, every Shia. Is it Sunni? I can't remember the difference between the two. Sunni. It doesn't matter. So anyway, get on different platforms, but be also aware that the internet can be pulled. The internet as we know it. Just take this for example. Imagine on the internet, what they do is they start turning, they say, oh, they can't turn on the internet because banks need it, because governments need it. Well, they could just as well put on VPN tunnels where you have an SSL VPN tunnel, and only that's allowed. Nothing else is allowed. So then you need to come through that VPN tunnel, you need to start getting some access gateway from the government. They could actually turn the internet into a gateway that only allows, for example, some new iterations of next generation firewall functionality. They could actually say, if any packet is not within this encrypted stream that we can see, which we can't see into here, but we can see exists here, drop the packets. So I can think of a number of ways they could actually get rid of things like Bitcoin, things like free communication. Then again, I'm not a CCIE. I'd have to ask a couple of my friends who are a bit beyond my qualification in Cisco. But anyway, that's I'm pretty sure that's possible. Again, if you're beyond my CCNA level, then maybe you know better. But so yeah, that's one thing. And I do believe actually that's already happening with applications like Signal, because if you've noticed, if anyone out there uses Signal or any of these platforms, by the way, once they got big, like years ago, once Skype got big, it got good, then it got shit. Was that Microsoft fucking around with the code after they bought it for Skype, or was that the fact that that traffic's being detected, and therefore to help their friends, they're going to degrade that bit stream? They're going to degrade that pathway, that traffic type, that encrypted peer-to-peer link. And I think that's what's actually happening, because given the fact that even the most pathetic internet link on a 3G even internet link that you've got is enough to do tens of phone calls. The fact that your one phone call can't work, and that's even if you've got a latency up to 100 milliseconds. Yeah, it's going to be a big delay, but it'll still work. We're seeing these calls not working within 10 to 20 megabytes. That's hundreds of phone calls, hundreds and hundreds of phone calls, by the way. And it can't even do one phone call. What my guess is they're seeing a traffic stream they can't read. And when they see that, they can't selectively block the traffic on it. So what they do is they just block the whole data. They block your whole IP stream from your house. So they know that's one stream of data. Just throttle him down until the traffic type changes to surfing YouTube, then turn it up again. We already know this work in America. They call it what's it called, net neutrality laws, where they're slowing down the internet for certain people, but not for Netflix, because that's a business. Not for the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, because they need to do exchange trading and they need to get fraction of a millisecond. Well, they've got their own stuff now, but when they were using mainline internet. So your chance of really getting run censorship gets slimmer and slimmer and slimmer when you factor in what if we get to next level. What if they get rolling blackouts? What if they get this and that? So this is when you come into the radio ham kind of stuff, using shortwave radio. And there's a friend of mine in New Zealand and I were talking about the other day, maybe having some spots. So we have 4 places around the world now where we're going to work out a schedule. If shit really hits the fan and we really want to get in touch with each other, I'll just have these meeting spots. Now it's a very inefficient way of doing things. So what if I make my way all the way to Thailand, in one of the meeting spots, or wherever it may be, or South Africa, and I get there and he's not there. Well, every year, same place, but also for a 3-day spell, and at 9 a.m. and at 5 a.m. It's not too much to wait for that time, because that's how inefficient. You got to remember how inefficient communication was years ago, when the first ever U.S. president was assassinated. It took, I think it was 140 days to get the message to California that he'd been killed, which was, I think, about three or 4 times longer than what his presidency was. This is what we'd be going back to if shit really hits the fan. So you got to think in that scenario, like, it's almost like, when you get a power cut and you don't realize how much you rely on power until you got a power cut. Fuck, I can't do that. Damn it. I'll be fine. That one as well. My alarm didn't go off because, or whatever. The alarm didn't go off because I forgot about that being off as well, and then I missed this and then that. You realize actually how much you take it for granted. And that'll be the same thing with communication. And that's why you will wish that you had just spent a bit of time organizing something, some worst case scenario, because it really takes some sitting down and really thinking about what things will be like if you lose connectivity. Anyway, that's about it. Yeah, there's not really much you can do to get around censorship. All you can do is stay one step ahead, but it's going to be a continual effort to stay ahead of what the new measures will be. So yeah, first measures, give your friends some applications right on your phone. I don't want to have lots of applications on my phone. I don't have any social media anymore. But what I do have is I have Signal. I still have WhatsApp, but it's only because some people won't get off of it. Other than that, Telegram. Other than that, I just don't care. It's like when you go to a rave and you get people looking for their, where's Emma? Where's Sarah? It gets to a stage like, who cares? We'll see them in the morning. We'll see them at some stage. We'll see them when we die, whatever. So that's kind of where I'm at now. Yeah, I want to make it convenient. The thing I'm more interested in is saving information, like videos that teach you how to do certain things, or anarchist cookbook, whatever the fuck it is that you think's got information that could help you. Save things like that so you've got offline copies. Yeah. Other than that, there's not really much you can do. You're pissing in the wind. So I think that's all I wanted to discuss about this particular topic of censorship. Mobile phones. Let me think about that. Oh yeah. So you always get a lot of companies trying to get you to divulge your mobile phone number, unless you do what I do and you're living in a place where they don't have your name, and you're just so you have a no contract phone, because I won't do contracts. And so nothing actually leads to you per se. It still does lead to you in some ways, but doesn't really lead to you. Then I wouldn't be using any of these things, because all they're really doing is information harvesting. Almost everything online is about information harvesting, and sometimes that harvesting can be stuff that is potentially used against you in the future, but often it really is just potential tuning of AI systems, big data basically. So to sell you more shit, to predict your movements, potentially in the future, to predict, like in the Minority Report, what crimes you might commit. These are all possibilities. Okay, I'm going to leave it there. That's about it. Yeah, some more things I wanted to say, but it can wait for another time. All right, have a good one. Bye.